Coming up, New York City police officers enter Columbia University's campus after weeks of protests.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 11.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Larger numbers of NYPD in riot gear entered Columbia University this evening. The move comes after the school began restricting access to its main campus after pro-Palestinian protesters broke into and occupied a school administration building. CBS's Michael George has the latest from New York.
Police in riot gear moved into the grounds of Columbia University late Tuesday after the school vowed to expel protesters who occupied a building on its New York City campus. Earlier Tuesday, a banner reading "Free Palestine" hung from a window at Columbia University's Hamilton Hall. After university leaders said demonstrators against Israel's war in Gaza broke into the building using hammers overnight.
There's no business as usual during a genocide, and I'm very proud of my fellow students.
The takeover came hours after a deadline for the protesters to clear their encampment that some argue has created a hostile environment.
The rhetoric that's led to harassment and anti-Semitic tropes has gone unchecked.
On Tuesday, the school issued a stay-away notice for members of staff, telling them to avoid the Morningside campus. Early Tuesday, authorities were seen forcefully removing protesters at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Protesters are demanding the schools cut ties with Israel, arguing the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is an issue they can no longer ignore. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
In a statement, the White House says President Biden respects the right to free expression, but says protests must be peaceful and lawful. He called the takeover at Columbia wrong. We will have more on the protests later in the newscast in our Listening to America segment. As we first reported last night, 2 men are dead as the result of 2 separate shootings in Rockcastle County. Clayton Cox is charged with murder and tampering with physical evidence in one of those deaths. Kentucky State Police say Joshua Dooley was found shot to death in his home on Goochland Cave Road, and that Cox admitted to going to the victim's home and firing into it. But Cox claims he had been a victim of numerous thefts for months.
That should never have come to pass. No, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have never got to that point. The law should have come there when I called them 11 times back.
Troopers are also investigating the murder of Benjamin Jones. They say his body was found just before noon yesterday on Sand Hill Road near Livingston. Terry L. Burke is charged in that case. We did ask to speak to Burke, but he did not want to talk to us on camera. A man indicted today in a Campbellsville University murder is scheduled to appear in court next week. A grand jury charged Charles Escalera with murder, burglary, and theft in Taylor County. He faces additional charges in Greene County, where he was taken into custody. Escalera is accused of killing 18-year-old Josiah Kilman back in February.
Well, wet weather is on the way out and fog is on the way in to close out your Tuesday and move into your Wednesday morning. Let's take a live look from the WYMT studios in Hazard. And yes, this camera is working, but it is very foggy in parts of Perry County this evening. That current temperature in Hazard up to 59 degrees. And as you can see, some of us dealing with some very low visibility at this hour, down to 0 miles in Pikeville, also for Logan, West Virginia, down to 1/4 mile for Harlan, also in Jonesville. So be sure to give yourself some extra time if you have to be on the road late tonight or early on your Wednesday. After some widespread showers for most of your Tuesday, we are down to a few more sprinkles in Pike County, also in Floyd County this evening, but all of us are drying out, also clearing out as we go into this evening and to go into your Wednesday. Those current temperatures in the upper 50s to lower 60s, up to 57 for Irvin and 60 over in Pikeville. Most of us wake up in the middle to possibly lower 50s on Wednesday. But the big story for the middle of this week, some warm weather is on the way. More details on that warm up coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
Cameron, thank you. Kentucky is set to become the first state in the U.S. to shield healthcare professionals from criminal prosecution for making medical mistakes. House Bill 159 was signed by the governor last month. Kelsey Soto is talking with some champions of the bill as well as a lawyer about the legal liabilities.
Soon, medical workers in Kentucky will be off the hook criminally for honest mistakes made on the job. Some lawyers say this gets the state better in line with other professions.
This isn't new. So this is essentially an immunity statute that a lot of either governmental employees, cabinet workers, police officers, they enjoy that at least some forms of immunity.
Teresa Villaran has been a nurse for more than 30 years and hopes this will help providers feel more comfortable reporting errors so they can be corrected.
It's really important for nurses to not be afraid, and we're seeing a lot of nurses leave nursing, some because of that fear. They don't want to be, charged with a, felony.
The Kentucky Nurses Association championed hard for House Bill 159. The Commonwealth is home to about 90,000 nurses.
We've actually been getting calls from other state nurse associations wanting to, do something similar. We really worked hard. It was really a big priority for us. So it's not something that came easy, and it's really, kind of surprising because a lot of bills don't get passed the first time, that they get put out there.
Now, this won't protect healthcare workers who are acting with intentional harm, like operating under the influence.
There's still civil penalties. There's still personal injury lawyers that can have lawsuits to get civil damages. However, this at least carries one less burden for healthcare officials so that you're not going to go to jail for it.
Those mistakes can also still be handled and reviewed by the Kentucky Medical Board and Board of Nursing. They can then determine any action that might be necessary. In Lexington, Kelsey Soto, WKYT.
A ceremonial signing of House Bill 159 will be held on May 17th at the Kentucky Nursing Association's Legislative Conference in Louisville. The Kentucky River Regional Animal Shelter in Perry County has been dealing with severe overcrowding, and the staff says they are seeing numbers of animals now far beyond their capacity. With more than 250 dogs being housed at the shelter, President Tony Vaughn says they are looking for help, from volunteers to walk dogs to community voices to help shine a light on the need for more legislation to keep pets out of situations like this.
Come down here and look and see. Make those calls. Be an advocate for these animals. We're trying our best to do just that. Maybe if we voice it enough, somebody will listen and try to help change the laws, help try to get more funding in.
Vaughn says due to the high number of animals, the shelter is hosting another free adoption day tomorrow from 2 p.m. until 5 p.m. He says they plan to start doing free adoption days once a month. Elorn City officials are looking ahead, seeing promise in the progress. After financial issues, a resignation by the former mayor, and a host of concerns from a state auditor's examination, the Elorn City Council is working to recover. Finances are first on the list, with audits ongoing and work underway to bring the city into compliance, but interim Mayor Nathan Bryant says there is light at the end of the tunnel.
So far it's been very productive. We're getting a lot done. I think we're going to dig ourselves out of this hole that we're in, the situation, a lot faster than people think.
Bryant will continue to serve as mayor until the November election, at which point the community will vote in their choice to continue the efforts. 2 decades ago, thousands came together to combat a growing issue in the Manchester community. And 20 years later, the after effects of the March Against Drugs are still being felt and bringing change to the region.
We want people to be more aware of the resources that are here in southeastern Kentucky to make a difference in their lives through, people who are in active addiction and also the education and prevention aspect of it too.
The march will begin Sunday at 3:30 p.m. at the EKU campus in Manchester. One Eastern Kentucky community celebrated new life in an old building, a new life that centers around economic development. WYMT's Jack Demler has more from the Ermine School in Letcher County.
An old 2-room schoolhouse from 1944 is being repurposed to help Whitesburg leaders revitalize downtown.
So as we peeled back all the layers of the years that were added to it, we got to see that history, where the chalkboards hung and the regional hardwood floors and where the regional light fixtures were, which were still up above the drop ceiling. So we're very proud to have this historic asset in our community, and it's someplace that we call home.
The Ermine School will now serve as a center for Letcher County tourism, EKY Heritage Foundation, and Pine Mountain Partnerships. A new home for economic development.
We're able to breathe new life into it, and I think it's symbolic. We're also trying to breathe new life into Letcher County through economic development, tourism development, downtown revitalization, and I'm glad that the elected officials have supported us in that way.
Representing the collaboration of the county.
I think having one place for all of those questions for visitors, for citizens, is symbolic of that as well, of their commitment to collaboration amongst the elected officials.
Collaboration that helps accomplish goals.
Working together, we can accomplish anything.
And honoring the history of the place many call home.
You know, Letcher County is very proud of their historic buildings and the Italian stone masonry that you will find all over our county. So I think that is a value that we as citizens do not take for granted.
With a goal of ending population loss, Jeffrey Justice says having community members celebrate the new location helps people see there is work being done in the county they love. In Whitesburg, Jack Demler, WYMT Mountain News.
The groups have been in the Ermine School since February, but wanted to pave the parking lot before welcoming everyone into their new building. Coming up on Mountain News at 11, the hush money trial against former President Trump continues as Trump is hit with a fine.
Plus, we are warming up for the middle of the week. Your Wednesday forecast after this break.